Hook. James Harper, a driven astrophysicist, stands triumphant under the vast Nevada desert sky, his instruments capturing the sun's elusive whispers. Months of grueling work have paid off, but his heart sinks with every unanswered message from his wife, Claire. Her silence hides a secret that threatens to unravel everything he's fought for. As the stars align for his scientific breakthrough, a storm brews at home, waiting to shatter his world. Story. James Harper, a 35-year-old astrophysicist, crouched beside a sleek array of solar sensors in the heart of Nevada's Black Rock Desert. The sky stretched endlessly above, a perfect canvas of clarity with no trace of humidity or city lights to distort the data. For months, he poured his energy into this project at the Vanguard Institute of Astrophysics, fine-tuning calculations and calibrating equipment to detect the sun's low-frequency oscillations. Every bolt tightened, every wire connected, brought him closer to a discovery that could redefine solar research. The desert's stillness, where time seemed to slow, was ideal for his work. But as the days ticked by, a different kind of tension gnawed at him. Claire, his wife of 7 years, had always been his anchor. When he left for the expedition, she'd kissed him goodbye with a smile, promising to keep the home fires burning in Seattle. But now, her responses to his messages were sparse, almost mechanical. He'd send photos of the star-dusted sky or quick updates about the project's progress, texts filled with excitement and a touch of longing. "Miss you. Can't wait to be back," he'd write. Her replies, when they came, were curt, a thumbs-up emoji, a cool, or nothing at all. At first, James chalked it up to her busy schedule at the marketing firm. Maybe she was swamped with deadlines. Maybe she was just tired. But the silence stretched, and with it, a quiet unease settled in his chest. He tried to stay focused. The sensors demanded precision, and any misstep could skew the data. By day, he adjusted lenses and cross-checked readouts under the relentless sun. At night, he pored over numbers, the glow of his laptop the only light in his temporary base. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by the hum of equipment and the weight of unanswered questions. During brief calls with his team back at the Institute, the spotty internet forced him to rely on text for updates. He'd send Claire a message after each milestone, hoping for a spark of connection. "First data set is clean. Love you," he typed one evening. Her reply came hours later. "Nice." The single word stung more than the desert's dry air. James pushed the doubt aside, telling himself he was overthinking. Claire wasn't the most expressive texter, never had been. She preferred face-to-face talks, where her quick wit and warmth shone. But this felt different. The absence of her usual playful banter, no photos of her morning coffee, no stories about her runs with her sister, left a void. He caught himself rereading old messages, searching for clues. Had she always been this distant during his trips? Or was this new, a shift he'd missed in the chaos of his work? One night, as he calibrated a sensor under a sky blazing with stars, his phone buzzed. His heart leapt, expecting Claire's name. It was only a team update, confirming the next phase of data collection. Disappointment twisted in his gut. He typed out another message to her. "Halfway done here. Counting the days till I'm home." He stared at the screen, waiting for the 3 dots of a reply. None came. He shoved the phone into his pocket and returned to the sensors, forcing his mind back to the task. The project was too critical for distractions. But the silence from Seattle was louder than the desert stillness. As the expedition neared its end, James's anticipation grew. The data was pristine, the sensors performing beyond expectations. His colleagues sent congratulatory messages, already planning the papers they'd publish. Yet, even this triumph couldn't shake the growing dread. Claire's latest message, sent after he'd shared a photo of the desert sunrise, read, "Looks good. No warmth. No questions about his work, no hint of the woman who'd once stayed up late debating constellations with him." He tried to call her, but the desert's weak signal cut the call short. Her voicemail greeting, bright and familiar, felt like a relic from another time. On his final night in the desert, James sat outside, the equipment humming softly behind him. The stars above were a reminder of why he'd chosen this path, but they offered no answers about Claire. He typed one last message. "Wrapping up tomorrow. Can't wait to see you." He hit send, staring at the screen until it dimmed. No reply came. He packed up his gear with mechanical precision, each movement a distraction from the questions piling up. Was she okay? Was it just the distance? Or was something else breaking, something he couldn't fix from 1,000 miles away? As he boarded the plane back to Seattle, James felt a mix of relief and apprehension. The project was a success, a career-defining moment. But the thought of home no longer felt like a safe harbor. He clutched his bag, the weight of his equipment grounding him as the plane ascended. Whatever awaited him, he'd face it head-on. But deep down, he knew the real challenge wasn't in the desert. It was waiting in the silence of his own home. Hook. James Harper lands in Seattle, his heart racing with the triumph of a groundbreaking expedition. But Claire's icy greeting at the airport chills his excitement. Her evasive glances and curt words deepen his unease, hinting at a betrayal he can't yet name. As he steps into their home, the silence screams louder than ever, and every attempt to reconnect pulls him closer to a truth he's not ready to face. Story. The plane touched down at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a faint orange glow over the tarmac. James Harper, still buzzing from the success of his Nevada expedition, gripped his bag tightly as he navigated the bustling terminal. His mind flickered between pride in the pristine data he'd collected and the nagging worry about Claire's distant messages. He scanned the crowd at the arrivals gate, expecting her familiar wave. There she was, leaning against a pillar, her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the floor. No smile, no rush to meet him. His stomach tightened, but he forced a grin and approached. "Hey, I'm back," he said, his voice bright with forced enthusiasm. Claire looked up briefly, her lips twitching into a half-hearted smile before she stepped forward for a quick, stiff hug. The embrace felt like a formality over in seconds. "How was the flight?" she asked, her tone flat, already turning toward the exit. James followed, describing the smooth trip and the project's success, hoping to spark some warmth. "The sensors worked perfectly. We've got data that could change everything," he said, watching her closely. She nodded, her eyes on her phone. "That's great," she mumbled, her fingers tapping the screen. In the car, the air felt heavy. James tried to fill the silence, recounting a story about a quirky technician who'd kept the team laughing during late-night calibrations. Claire stared out the window, offering only a faint hum in response. He glanced at her, searching for a crack in her detachment. "You okay? You seem off," he ventured, keeping his tone light. She shifted in her seat, tucking her phone away. "Just a headache. Long day at work," she said, her voice clipped. He offered to stop for coffee or painkillers, but she shook her head. "I just want to get home." The drive stretched on, punctuated by the hum of the engine and the occasional chime of Claire's phone. James's mind raced. Was she stressed? Sick? Or was this something deeper? He tried again, asking about her week, her sister's new job, anything to bridge the gap. Her answers were short, evasive, fine, busy, nothing new. By the time they pulled into their driveway, his excitement about returning home had curdled into dread. He carried his bags inside, the familiar creak of the front door sounding louder in the tense quiet. Claire disappeared into the kitchen, muttering about needing water. James set his bags down and followed, hoping proximity might thaw her. She stood by the sink, sipping from a glass, her back to him. "I missed you," he said softly, stepping closer. She turned, her expression unreadable, and gave a small nod. "Yeah, me too," she said, but the words lacked conviction. She set the glass down and brushed past him. "I'm exhausted. I'll see you in the morning." Before he could respond, she was gone, her footsteps fading down the hall. James stood alone, the weight of her dismissal pressing against him. He unpacked his equipment methodically, each item a reminder of the precision he'd mastered in the desert. But here, in his own home, he felt adrift. He showered, ate a quick sandwich, and climbed into bed, hoping sleep would reset the strange disconnect. Claire was already under the covers, her back to him, her breathing steady but distant. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying her coldness. Maybe she just needed time, he told himself. Maybe tomorrow would be different. Morning came, but the distance remained. Claire was up before him, already dressed and sipping coffee when he entered the kitchen. "Got an early meeting," she said, barely looking up from her phone. "Client's being a pain." James offered to walk her to the car, but she waved him off. "I'm late already. I'll text you later." She grabbed her bag and left, the door clicking shut behind her. The house felt emptier than it had in weeks. He lingered by the counter, her half-empty coffee mug still warm under his fingers. The urge to call her, to demand answers, surged, but he held back. She'd open up when she was ready, or so he hoped. As he busied himself with unpacking, a sharp knock at the door broke his thoughts. He opened it to find Anna, the neighbor from across the street, standing there, her hands clasped tightly. They'd exchanged pleasantries before, small talk about yard work or the weather, but her expression now was heavy, urgent. "James, we need to talk," she said, her voice low but firm. His pulse quickened. "What's wrong?" he asked, stepping aside to let her in. Anna hesitated, then pulled out her phone. "It's about Claire and my husband, Mark. You need to see this." She opened a video, her hands trembling slightly as she handed him the phone. The footage was shaky, filmed in dim light. It showed Anna creeping through her own house, her breathing uneven. She approached a bedroom door, slightly ajar, and pushed it open. There on the bed were Claire and Mark, tangled in sheets, laughing softly, oblivious to the world. James's breath caught. The video shook as Anna froze, capturing a few seconds more before Mark noticed her, his face going pale. Claire gasped, scrambling to cover herself, her movements frantic. The clip ended abruptly, leaving only the sound of Anna's ragged breathing. James stared at the blank screen, his mind reeling. "When was this?" he asked, his voice steady despite the storm inside. 2 weeks ago," Anna said quietly. "I suspected Mark was hiding something. Late nights, vague excuses. I pretended to visit my sister, but came back early. I didn't expect this." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting his own shock. "I couldn't keep this from you. You deserve to know." The room seemed to shrink around him. Every cold text, every dodged glance from Claire snapped into focus. The betrayal wasn't just a moment caught on video. It was the weeks of silence, the lies woven into her headaches and busy days. James handed the phone back, his hand steady but his heart pounding. "Thank you," he said, the words heavy. Anna nodded, her own pain mirrored in her gaze. "I'm sorry," she whispered, then turned to leave. James stood frozen as the door closed behind her. The house, once a place of comfort, now felt like a stage for a truth he hadn't seen coming. Claire would be home soon. He didn't know what he'd say, but one thing was clear. The life he'd left for the desert was gone, and what came next would test him more than any expedition ever could. James Harper clutches the truth in his trembling hands, the video of Claire's betrayal burning in his mind. As she walks through the door, oblivious to his discovery, the air crackles with unspoken accusations. The confrontation looms, and every word they exchange sharpens the edge of a marriage teetering on collapse. But as James faces the wreckage, an unexpected ally offers a lifeline, pulling him toward a choice he never imagined. James stood in the quiet house, the echo of Anna's departure lingering like a pulse. The video she'd shown him looped in his mind, Claire and Mark, tangled in a moment that shattered 7 years of trust. His phone sat heavy in his hand, the screen dark, but the images vivid. He wanted to confront Claire now, to demand answers, but his scientist's instinct held him back. He needed to be precise, not reckless. He paced, each step a countdown to her return, his thoughts a tangle of hurt and calculation. The desert had taught him control. Every sensor, every data point demanded it, but this was different. This was personal. The front door clicked open. Claire stepped inside, her bag slung over her shoulder, her movements casual, as if nothing had changed. "Hey," she said, her voice light but strained, like she was playing a role. James turned, his jaw tight, and met her gaze. "We need to talk," he said, his tone even but unyielding. Claire froze, her hand pausing on her bag. "About what?" she asked, a flicker of unease crossing her face before she masked it with a shrug. She moved toward the kitchen, but James stepped into her path. "About you and Mark," he said, the words sharp, cutting through her pretense. Her eyes widened, just for a second, before she recovered. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice rising slightly, a defensive edge creeping in. James held up his phone, the video cued, but not playing. "Anna showed me. 2 weeks ago. Her house. You and him." The air between them thickened, charged with the weight of the accusation. Claire's mouth opened, then closed, her hands tightening around her bag strap. That's not what you think," she stammered, but her voice faltered, betraying her. "Don't," James said, cutting her off. "Don't lie to me. Not now." He kept his voice steady, though his chest ached with the effort. Claire's shoulders slumped, and she sank onto the couch, her bag sliding to the floor. "Okay," she whispered, staring at her hands. "It happened. I didn't mean for it to." She looked up, her eyes searching his, but James held his ground, unmoved. "I was lonely, James. You were gone for weeks, buried in your work. Mark was there. It was a mistake." "A mistake," James repeated, his voice low but sharp. "You were in his bed, Claire, laughing, while I was out there, thinking of you, working for us." He took a step closer, his hands clenched. "How long? How many times?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Just a few times. It wasn't planned. It just happened." Her words sounded hollow, rehearsed, and they only deepened the cut. James felt the anger rise, but pushed it down. He wouldn't let it control him. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. "You let me come back, act like everything was fine." "What?" Claire's gaze dropped again. "I didn't know how. I thought I could fix it, make it go away before you found out." She paused, then added, "I knew Anna was suspicious. I should have stopped." James stared at her, the woman he'd loved for years, now a stranger. Her excuses didn't justify the betrayal. They only made it worse. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I can't do this," he said finally. "I need you to leave. Tonight." Claire's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. "James, please, we can work through this. I'll stop seeing him. He raised a hand, silencing her. "No, you made your choice. Now I'm making mine." His words were final, a line drawn. Claire sat frozen for a moment, then nodded slowly, rising to her feet. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door, pausing only to say, "I'm sorry." The apology landed like a stone, heavy but meaningless. As the door closed behind her, James felt the house settle into a new kind of silence, not the tense quiet of doubt, but the hollow calm of a decision made. He sat, staring at the blank wall, the weight of the confrontation settling in. His marriage was over, and the realization hit harder than the video itself. He'd built a life with Claire, planned a future, and now it was gone, unraveling in a single conversation. A soft knock at the door broke his thoughts. It was Anna, standing hesitantly on the porch, a small container of homemade soup in her hands. "I thought you might need something to eat," she said, her voice gentle but tinged with the same pain he felt. James managed a small nod, stepping aside to let her in. "Thanks," he said, his voice rough. They stood in awkward silence for a moment before Anna spoke again. "I told Mark this morning. He's gone, too. Staying with a friend." Her words carried a shared weight, a mutual understanding of betrayal. James gestured to the couch, and they sat, the soup forgotten on the table. "How'd you do it?" he asked. "Confront him, I mean." Anna exhaled, her hands clasped tightly. "I didn't plan it. Just showed him the video and asked why. He didn't have much to say." She paused, then added, "It's not about the anger. It's the emptiness after." James nodded, recognizing the feeling. "Yeah, like everything you thought was real just wasn't." They talked for hours, the conversation flowing easily despite the rawness of their wounds. Anna shared how she'd noticed Mark's late nights, his sudden secrecy with his phone. James recounted Claire's cold texts, the way she'd dodged his attempts to connect. Their stories mirrored each other, two lives upended by the same betrayal. As the evening wore on, Anna's presence became a quiet comfort, a reminder that he wasn't alone in this. Before she left, Anna looked at him, her gaze steady. "We'll get through this," she said, not as a promise, but as a fact. "Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we will." James nodded, the smallest spark of hope flickering. "Together?" he asked, half joking but meaning it. Anna's lips curved into a faint smile. "Maybe." She stepped outside, leaving him with a sense of possibility amid the wreckage. Alone again, James felt the first stirrings of resolve. Claire's betrayal had broken something, but it hadn't broken him. He didn't know what came next, but as he locked the door and turned out the light, one thing was clear. He was ready to face it, whatever it was, with the same precision he'd brought to the desert. James Harper's world lies in pieces after Claire's betrayal, but in the quiet aftermath, an unexpected bond with Anna begins to take root. As they navigate their shared pain, small gestures of kindness spark a fragile hope. Yet, The shadow of their past looms, and a chance encounter with Claire threatens to unravel their newfound strength. With every step forward, James faces a choice: cling to the hurt or build something new. The days following Claire's departure blurred into a strange rhythm for James Harper. The house, once filled with the hum of their shared life, now echoed with absence. He threw himself into routine, sorting equipment from the Nevada expedition, answering emails from the Vanguard Institute, anything to keep his mind from replaying Anna's video. But the truth was inescapable. Claire's betrayal had carved a hollow space in him, and every unanswered question, why she'd done it, how long she'd lied, gnawed at his focus. Yet, in that void, something else was stirring, a quiet connection with Anna, the neighbor who'd faced the same wound. Anna stopped by the next evening, carrying a thermos of coffee and a hesitant smile. "Thought you might need a break from Instant," she said, holding it out. James accepted it, grateful for the gesture. They sat on his porch, the cool Seattle air a stark contrast to the desert's dry heat. Conversation came easily, unforced. Anna spoke of her own confrontation with Mark, how his weak apologies mirrored Claire's. He said it was just a moment, she recounted, her voice steady but edged with hurt. As if that makes it less real. James nodded, recognizing the same empty excuses. Claire said she was lonely. Like that explains it. Their talks became a nightly ritual. Anna would bring leftovers or a playlist of old rock songs. James would share stories of the desert, the stars, the precision of his work. They avoided their exes at first, focusing instead on the small things, her love for hiking, his knack for fixing anything mechanical. One evening, Anna noticed a loose hinge on his toolbox and teased him about it. "An astrophysicist who can't tighten a screw?" she said, her laugh light but genuine. James grabbed a screwdriver, fixed it on the spot, and handed her the tool with a mock bow. "Your turn next," he said, and her answering grin felt like a step toward something new. But the past wasn't so easily left behind. A week after Claire left, James ran into her at a grocery store. He'd gone for basics: bread, milk, coffee. When he spotted her in the produce aisle, her cart half full. Their eyes met, and the air seemed to thicken. She started to speak, but James cut her off with a polite nod, turning away. "James, wait," she called, her voice shaky. He paused, his grip tight on the cart. "I just want to explain," she said, stepping closer. "I messed up, but I still care about you." Her words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were irrelevant. "You cared enough to lie for weeks," he said evenly, then walked away, leaving her standing there. The encounter rattled him. Back home, he texted Anna, asking if she was free. She arrived within minutes, sensing his unease. "Saw Claire," he said simply, pouring them both coffee. Anna listened as he described the moment, her presence grounding him. "Mark tried calling me yesterday," she admitted. "I didn't answer. It's not worth it." They sat in silence, the shared weight of their ex's attempts to reach out binding them closer. "They don't get to rewrite this," James said, his voice firm. Anna nodded. "We decide what happens next." Their bond deepened through small acts. James fixed a leaky faucet at Anna's place. She invited him for a walk along the waterfront, where they talked about everything but their exes, her dream to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, his plans for a new research project. One evening, as they sat on a bench watching the ferries glide across Puget Sound, Anna asked, "Do you think you'll ever trust again?" James considered it, the question cutting deeper than he expected. "I want to," he said, "but it's like recalibrating a sensor. You have to start small, test it, see if it holds." She smiled faintly. "Good analogy." The turning point came when Anna suggested they handle their divorces together. "Same day, same courthouse," she said over dinner at her place. "A simple meal of pasta and wine. Close the chapter at once." "It feels right." James agreed, struck by the symmetry of it. They contacted their lawyers, scheduling appointments minutes apart at the King County Courthouse. The decision felt like a pact, a shared resolve to move forward. They spent the next few days preparing, trading practical advice and quiet encouragement. Anna's steady presence was a contrast to Claire's evasions, and James found himself leaning into it, not out of need but choice. The night before the courthouse visit, they walked the neighborhood, the city lights flickering in the distance. Anna stopped by a park bench, her breath visible in the chilly air. "I'm nervous," she admitted. Not about the divorce, but what comes after. James nodded, feeling the same mix of apprehension and possibility. Me too, he said. But we're not doing this alone. He reached for her hand, a tentative gesture. She squeezed it back, her touch warm and certain. It wasn't a promise of forever, but a signal they were on the same path. As they parted for the night, James felt a shift. The pain of Claire's betrayal hadn't vanished, but it was no longer the only thing defining him. Anna's honesty, her willingness to face the same hurt, gave him a foundation to rebuild. The courthouse loomed tomorrow, a final step to sever the past. But tonight, standing under the Seattle stars, James felt something he hadn't in weeks. A spark of hope, faint but steady, like a signal from a distant star. James Harper steps into the courthouse, divorce papers in hand, ready to close the chapter on Claire's betrayal. Beside him, Anna faces her own reckoning with Mark. As they confront their pasts, a fleeting glimpse of their exes reveals the cost of deceit. Hand in hand, James and Anna walk away, not as victims, but as architects of a future built on truth. Their journey isn't revenge, it's redemption, a testament to resilience in the face of heartbreak. The King County Courthouse loomed over downtown Seattle, its stone facade stark against the morning sky. James Harper clutched an envelope containing his divorce papers, the weight of the moment grounding him. Beside him, Anna walked with the same quiet resolve, her own documents tucked under her arm. They'd agreed to do this together, same day, same place, a symbolic act to sever the ties of their broken marriages. The decision felt like a clean cut, a way to reclaim control after weeks of chaos. James glanced at Anna, her steady presence a reminder that he wasn't alone. She offered a small nod, and they stepped inside, ready to face the final step. The courthouse buzzed with activity, lawyers shuffling papers, voices echoing off marble walls. James's appointment was first. He entered a small office where a clerk reviewed his papers with clinical efficiency. The questions were routine: grounds for divorce, asset division, no contest from either side. James answered calmly, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest. Signing the final page felt like releasing a breath he'd held for weeks. The clerk stamped the documents, and, just like that, his marriage to Claire was over. He exited the room, the envelope now lighter, and found Anna waiting in the hall. "Your turn," he said, managing a half-smile. Anna squeezed his arm before entering her own meeting. James paced the corridor, the reality of the moment sinking in. He was free, but the word felt incomplete. Freedom wasn't just an end, it was a beginning, and what came next was still uncertain. Anna emerged minutes later, her expression a mix of relief and exhaustion. "Done," she said simply, holding up her own stamped envelope. They stood for a moment, the shared weight of their decisions binding them closer than words could. As they turned to leave, movement across the lobby caught James's eye. There, near the entrance, stood Claire and Mark. They held their own envelopes, their postures tense, their eyes avoiding each other. Claire's gaze flickered toward James, and for a split second, their eyes locked. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Mark shifted uncomfortably, pretending to check his phone, but his quick glance at Anna betrayed his unease. The air crackled with unspoken truths. James felt a surge of something, not anger but clarity. He didn't need their apologies or explanations. Their guilt was their own to carry. Anna's hand brushed against his, a quiet prompt to move on. James took it, their fingers intertwining, and they walked toward the exit. As they passed Claire and Mark, James kept his eyes forward, his grip on Anna's hand firm. The message was clear without a word. They were done looking back. Outside, the Seattle air was crisp, the city humming with life. James felt the weight of the past lift, not entirely, but enough to breathe easier. Anna looked at him, her eyes bright with something new. "Feels like a clean slate," she said, her voice soft but certain. They crossed the street, leaving the courthouse behind. Neither spoke of Claire or Mark, but the encounter lingered, a silent confirmation of their choices. James and Anna stopped at a nearby cafe, settling at a table by the window. Over coffee, they talked about the future, her plans to hike the Cascades, his upcoming presentation at the Vanguard Institute. The conversation flowed, unburdened by the past. "You ever think about what's next?" Anna asked, stirring her coffee. James leaned back, considering. "I didn't Not until recently. Now, I'm starting to. Their connection wasn't rushed or forced. It grew from shared moments, walks along the waterfront, late-night talks about dreams they'd shelved, small acts of care that built trust. James had fixed Anna's creaky porch step. She brought him a book on stellar evolution, knowing his passion for the stars. Each gesture was a brick in a new foundation, one built on honesty rather than promises. They didn't label what they had, but it was enough to move forward together. Later that day, they walked through a park, the late spring sun filtering through the trees. Anna paused by a bench, her hand still in his. "I didn't expect this," she said, her voice quiet. "Not after everything." James nodded, understanding. "Me neither. But it feels right." He squeezed her hand, and she smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was possibility, a chance to rebuild, to trust again, to find joy in the aftermath of pain. Across town, Claire sat in a friend's apartment, her divorce papers scattered on a table. She stared at them, the finality sinking in. Memories of James, his quiet support, his excitement over his work, flooded her, each one a reminder of what she'd thrown away. She'd texted him once, a half-hearted apology, but got no reply. She didn't expect one. Mark, meanwhile, was alone in a rented studio, the TV droning to fill the silence. He'd considered calling Anna, but her number was blocked. The affair, once a thrill, now left him with nothing but regret and a lease he could barely afford. James and Anna didn't dwell on their ex's fates. They didn't need to. Their strength was in moving forward, not in gloating over Claire and Mark's isolation. As the weeks passed, James and Anna grew closer, their bond a quiet defiance of the past. They planned a weekend hike, a chance to escape the city and breathe. James packed his telescope, eager to show Anna the stars he'd studied for years. She teased him about it, but her excitement was clear. Standing under the night sky, far from the courthouse and the weight of betrayal, James felt a new rhythm, a life not defined by what he'd lost, but by what he was building. Anna stood beside him, her shoulder brushing his, and for the first time in months, he felt whole. The stars above were steady, unyielding, a reminder that some things endured. And with Anna by his side, James knew he could too.